Book 19 brings things to a head for us. We've seen Odysseus and Penelope coming together in our last discussion. Prior discussions, we've talked about Odysseus giving his lie to Penelope, then having his scar spotted by Eurycleia. And now, as a kind of coup de grace to what happens in Book 19, Penelope drops some things on Odysseus. She goes ahead and tells him her dream. Book 20 that's going to follow this is loaded with divine signs, each of which is confirming that Odysseus is about to come or is already here. The dream of Penelope, though, is perhaps the most elaborate and most carefully wrought of all of these divine signs, suggesting that Odysseus is indeed really here. And it's in an almost move of vertiginous ingenuity. Homer has Odysseus involved in his own self-revelation to Penelope, but through his own disguise. Let's keep an eye on how all these moving parts work. But before we do, I'd like to introduce another universal law. What's been happening in these secret codes of knowledge back and forth with Odysseus and Athena, and then Odysseus and Telemachus, and the special messages that they send one another, is that we have some proprietary knowledge that not everybody knows, but only a select few know. This is secrecy, and it's worked to a great degree in this part of the story. I'm going to actually lay down a universal law here that secrecy creates intimacy. This is universal law number 6, I believe, and like all universal laws, it's pretty much universal, guaranteed to be true. You can use it in, who knows, someday maybe we'll publish a book on laws of the universe according to Greek mythology. Struck's universal laws. Universal law number 6, secrecy creates intimacy. Proprietary knowledge makes people feel closer together. And there's a corollary to this universal law, which says that if you want to flirt with someone, tell them you had a dream about them. However, this corollary should only be used with extreme caution. It has a very high degree of difficulty. If you just walk up to someone and say, "Hey, I had a dream about you," they might think, that's kind of creepy. It's a little bit too intimate. Don't, too much information. Please don't go on. But you can see what Penelope does with this particular corollary in this part, and it works out okay for her. Remember the back and forth that's been happening? The two of them are quiet, in a quiet conversation in the firelight. There are some serving maids around the edges, but the two of them have their own sort of private audience. They're having a conversation back and forth. He's told his lies to her. She's ordered the foot washing. Eurycleia has spotted the scar. Penelope in all this seems like she can sense something's going on, but she never says, and Homer never says it, and so she knew it was Odysseus. But there's stuff that's been happening in Book 19, and Penelope's not unobservant. She is sitting on a chair inlaid with ivory. We learn at page 392. Odysseus is looking at her with eyes made of horn. We hear on page 397, eyes made of horn. Now, Penelope says, "Okay, stranger, you can sleep. We'll put a bed down for you. We're going to take care of you like you're a guest. Not a regal bed, but we'll kind of take care of you." This is an indication from Penelope that even though you're a stranger, I'm going to treat you a little better. I'm interested in you, is kind of what that message is. And she says, "But before I do, I want you to help me, because I recently had this dream, and I need you, stranger, to help me interpret the dream." She tells him that an eagle comes down and kills a bunch of birds that have been feeding in a trough at her house. She's upset at the violence and the carnage, and then the eagle flies over to her as if to reassure her and says, "I am Odysseus. I am here in order to set your house right, and all is going to be well because I'm back." And then the eagle flies away. She then says to this stranger, "Stranger, I want you to be the interpreter of my dream." Now, functionally, what she's asking Odysseus when she asks him that, she wants him to be the interpreter of her dream. Well, her dream already has one of those. It already has an interpreter. The eagle interprets the dream. So when she asks Odysseus to be the interpreter, she's also simultaneously asking him to please be the eagle. She's asking Odysseus then not only to be the interpreter of her dream, but also by the language of her dream itself to be Odysseus. She's asking the stranger to be Odysseus. At this point, Odysseus kind of starts to almost be at a loss for words, which is kind of interesting to see. I mean, Odysseus, and the great talker, is never at a loss for words, and says, well, my goodness, interpreting this, seems like the eagle kind of got it, and it seems like Odysseus is back, and it seems like he's about to kill all these suitors. So, yeah, that kind of seems like what the dream means to me. At which point, Penelope does one of her wonderful things. Oh, you know, stranger, you might be right, but you never know. Dreams are oftentimes just flitting fantasies. They don't mean anything. Sometimes they're true, sometimes they're false. Those that are true come out of the gate of horn. Those that are false come out of the gate of ivory. Well, earlier in book 19, we've been told Penelope's sitting on a chair inlaid with ivory. She's associated with the gate of false dreams. Homer tells us that Odysseus is looking at her with eyes made of horn, associating him with the gate of true dreams. Now, what's happening with those associations? Very subtle. And I could only suggest, I don't know for sure, but it seems to me that Homer's making a suggestion in associating Penelope with the gate of false dreams, that what she's really telling him here is a story to carry on what she's already been doing in book 19, to test. Let me tell you this dream. Let's see what you make of it. And in looking at his reaction, she's going to then learn something about who this person is. It could be that Penelope's dream is something she has just made up in order to test Odysseus. And when Homer has her sitting on a chair inlaid with ivory, associating her with false dreams, it could be that that's what's happening. And when Homer has Odysseus associated with horn, it could be that he's now speaking the truth, saying, yeah, Odysseus really is coming to set things right. Very subtle things. I wouldn't necessarily make a big case out of it, but it seems to me that the dream is a world that is packed with hidden meanings. I've made stretches into a number of those different layers of metadata that might be built in here. What we know for sure is that Penelope claims to Odysseus that she had a dream that Odysseus is here and he's come to set her house right. She's asking him what he thinks about that and whether he thinks that might be true. He's saying, yes, indeed, it's true. From here, book 20 will lay down the signs that show that the rest of this, show in many other ways that this message is corroborated by other divine signs, which will lead us to the doorstep of book 21 and a lot of changes about to take place in the house of Penelope and Odysseus.